very warm welcome to all the participants in our special program today and our esteemed and distinguished guests who have graced our program. A very special welcome to our speaker today, Mr. Karan Vaidyaji, Honorary Consul General of the Republic of Latvia, for taking the time to be with us. Before we introduce our speaker, we'd like to tell you a little bit about Rtambhara Wellness. We are a collective of like-minded individuals from various walks of life who have come together on this mission of achieving human wellness and well-being through a holistic approach. An approach that believes that well-being is not just about the body, but the mind as well. And our solutions lie in the practice of knowledge and wisdom that comes from our ancient Indian scriptures and heritage. At Rtambhara, we also place great emphasis on arts and culture, music and dance especially, since we believe there's a direct link to this practice and our inner higher selves. With this intent of holistic well-being, we conduct virtual and live corporate programs and group retreats for wellness that empower oneself through self-discovery and personal transformation for unlocking one's true potential. Please visit our website, rtambharawellness.com, for more details. Also, all our earlier webinars are uploaded on YouTube under the same name. If you resonate with what we are doing and would like to be part of our community, we are posting the details of where you can connect with us on the chat. Alternately, if you find it easier, please post your contact details, cell number, email ID on the chat function, and we'll add you to our groups. Now back to today's program. May I first request everybody to stay muted through the talk? Thank you so much. Today's session will be for 60 minutes. Shri Karan Vaidyaji will talk to us for about 40-45 minutes, after which there'll be a Q&A session for 15 minutes. Please feel free to post your questions using the chat function, and we'll take up the questions immediately after the talk. Now, may I request Shri Praveen Goenka-ji, our founder and managing director of Rtambhara Wellness and the Honorary Consul of Estonia, to introduce our speaker, Shri Karan Vaidyaji. Over to you, Shri Praveen-ji.
Namaste. I extend a warm welcome to all the distinguished guests and my honorable colleagues representing many nations from the Consular Corps. Special acknowledgement of the presence of Mr. Suresh Chukapalli, the Honorary Consul General of South Korea, and Mr. Balan Subramanian, the Honorary Consul of Latvia. Thank you very much for your presence in this special talk of Mr. Karan Vaidya, and I would like to now introduce him to all of us. Mr. Karan Vaidya is the Honorary Consul for the Republic of Latvia in Nepal, the youngest appointed till date in the world. He is also the founder of Cavalier Hospitality and the Vice President of the Vaidya Group. Karan was born in Nepal, educated in India, US, UK, and China, and has worked in various multinationals from London to Toronto to Singapore. He has always been deeply connected to his roots in Nepal and has a special connection to the spirituality and wellness. At his MIT MBA, he conceptualized in the form of his final thesis, the Moksha model, a new hospitality business model that combines spirituality and wellness, green architecture, as well as the rural development. The amalgamation of his passions, his international degrees and exposure brought him back to Nepal, where he has been tirelessly working to build his brand of wellness retreats based on this thesis, as well as aiding the continuation of his family conglomerate. Karan is an individual that is driven by his aspiration to empower others by motivating them to be better through their mind, body, and soul. Dear Honorable colleague Karan, may I request you to take over the virtual podium and present to us your much awaited talk on digital detox wellness in a digital world. Over to you, Karan.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for a wonderful introduction, Praveen. Good evening and namaste to all the venerated members here, as well as all the respected speakers that have joined us from all over. First and foremost, let me give a big thank you to Rtambhara and all its members for this wonderful opportunity, and especially Praveen, without whom I would not have been part of this wonderful group of brilliant people. Thank you so much. Uh, actually, uh, Praveen gave a good introduction to me, so I will move away from that. But I want to tell you something from a very young age. I've always had a strong affinity towards spirituality, energies, as well as well being. In fact, I strongly believe that it was some kind of fateful alignment of energies that actually brought me together to Rtambhara as well as through Mr. Praveen. I remember very vividly, it was after a beautiful performance, evening performance at Bangalore by, I think it was Dr. and Mrs. L. Subramaniam, which are one of our Rtambhara members, Mr. Balan. I think he's here with us. He hosted a beautiful ceremony there with the Latvian Symphonic Orchestra. And I was just waiting for my car to go back to the hotel. And Mr. Praveen was there. And we literally maybe had a talk for 2 minutes. And we just somehow, our energies, our wavelengths matched. And he talked about Rtambhara then. I think it wasn't called Rtambhara back then. It was just an idea that was forming. And he introduced me to it. And from then to now, I am obliged and honored to be a part of this amazing group of personalities and hope I can give you an insightful talk today. So let me just quickly share my screen. Okay, I think it's working. So to start with a short background, as Praveen mentioned that I did finish my MBA at MIT. And during my research for my thesis, I researched various ways in which we could bring wellness to the modern world through ancient and modern practices. I was always passionate about hospitality and service. So the result of my research was this thesis, a hospitality model that encompasses all forms of well-being for the people today. And for my topic here today, I've taken a small part of that thesis and will be presenting it to you. I've chosen something slightly different from the general trend because we have had so many learned speakers and members that have talked about wonderful things. And I was wondering what would be something that I could give to you that would be some novel in nature and also a learning opportunity. So this is why I am bringing to light a subject that is quite new, but also must be known in the wellness sphere, especially in today's world. So as you know, Rtambhara's foundation is wellness. And wellness has different facets that we need to look into. And one facet that gets overlooked due to its new or novel nature is digital wellness. In today's world, we as human beings are getting deeper and deeper into this digital world. However, we should know that this digital world is a double-edged sword. Without it, I could not have been presenting to you here while my city is under lockdown and I'm sitting here in Nepal presenting to people from different parts of the world. However, technology does have a darker side as well, about which I will give you a small insight today, just to make you aware of what things are and maybe some steps that can help you towards your digital well-being. So a while ago, I had a very interesting conversation with an uncle of mine. I think it was a event, wedding event, and it was at dinner. We were just having casual conversation. And somehow the topic went to Facebook. And he said something like, I don't know why, but Facebook has gotten me connected to many people, but looking at pictures of everyone doing everything has actually made me feel sad, almost depressed. It's gotten connected me to the world more than ever before, but it still makes me feel lonely. So, what my uncle unknowingly touched upon was a very delicate topic that is being researched deeply by a lot of psychologists and researchers today. And this is what I'll be talking about. So, a fellow researcher at my university, at MIT, has written extensively about this topic. She has written this book that you can see in the presentation. It's called Alone Together. And in this, she theorizes that how social media is actually weakening our human ties to each other. And if you're interested, this is a wonderful read. And she has chronicled the negative impacts of being constantly connected to technology and how it paradoxically has left people feeling more alone. And in fact, this is getting truer day by day. We are connected to many more people than we were ever before, but so are we lonelier. Even when a family is sitting down all together for dinner or just in the living room, their eyes are glued to their phones. This is seriously reducing the impact of what it means to be together. We are all familiar with that distinctive ping or notification that comes from our pocket through our cell phones, and it distracts us from whatever we are doing. May it be from home or at work, the development of technology and a plethora of social media has gotten us hooked to our devices. We have become so hooked to them that being away from our devices has actually turned into an actual clinical and psychological fear. And psychologists have actually named it nomophobia, which is basically means that it's a certain kind of separation anxiety that you have with people, but this is with your mobile devices. So you can see a small comic about it in the presentation. So psychologists now have acquainted smartphone addiction to be the #1 non-drug addiction and have termed it as digital heroin. And it is not just the ping or the notification that gets us hooked to the devices. It's a much deeper psychological thinking that I will briefly talk to you about so that we understand how it is skewing with our psychology, our minds, as well as how the society works today. So allow me to quickly run through just 2 recent studies that were published. So a new study was published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology by psychologists at UPenn, which is University of Pennsylvania. And for the first time, they have actually linked directly the amount of time spent on social media and smartphone with depression and loneliness. So I am quoting from the actual study. So what they said was, net result was that those who cut back on their smartphone use saw a clinically significant fall in depression as well as loneliness in the course of the study. In another study where about 2,000 Americans from states were polled, they found that participants that used social media and their smartphones very frequently were 2.7 times more likely to get depression. That is an extremely scary number, and we have to be careful and be aware of what is going on. So there are several studies that are ongoing. As I said, it's a very novel topic, but there are several studies that are ongoing which are coming out with the same results. So why does this link to technology and social media make people feel bad? I mean, it has helped a lot of people. We are doing this here today because of technology, but the psychology of this is way deeper than we think. If you can look at the presentation, you will see a simple diagram. This is, it's called a habit loop, and it was popularized by the Pulitzer Prize winner, Charles Duhigg, who has written a beautiful book about it called The Power of Habit. And what it basically is you have the cue, you have the routine, and the reward. So all human and animal minds works with this loop. This is the loop that can actually make us or break us. So how it works is basically you have a cue. This particular diagram is for, he's talking about how alcoholics actually turn into alcoholics. So how it starts is it starts with a cue. It could be a fight with a spouse, just a tired day, you come back from work, you want to have a glass of a drink, any kind of alcohol. So you have that trigger, and that trigger leads to a routine, which is drinking. And that drinking in turn relieves you from that certain stress, and you get a hit of this chemical called dopamine, which is a very important chemical in our brains. And you get a feeling of success, a feeling of reward. And then again, that repeats, the cycle repeats again and again and again. And what it happens is it gets hardwired to our brains. So next time, even when you're not sad or not tired, you want to drink just to feel that little bit of dopamine hit or that reward. So why I'm talking about this is basically how alcohol, drugs, gambling, anything addictive works, but so does social media. So in a very similar fashion, the use of mobile tech and social media has been proven to release dopamine, the feel-good chemical, the chemical of success that goes to our brain. So what happens in this case? So we are bored, we have 5 minutes of spare time, we're waiting for a coffee. So we want to perform an action. So for example, we use a platform like WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, it could be anything. And we write a post and post a picture, and we wait for a reaction. We hope that we will get a positive reaction, which is generally much easy in today's world. So to send us a like, a thumbs up, a heart, anyone can do it easily, and the reaction is received. And then we get that hit of dopamine, that hit of success that goes to our brain. And then we want to do it again and again and again. And this cycle actually makes us crave social media and our smartphones more and more. That is the reason why we can't let go of it. So it actually clinically becomes addictive. So researchers at the Chicago University concluded that social media addiction can actually be stronger than the addiction to cigarettes or to alcohol. So let's talk a little bit about this chemical called dopamine. It is a very important chemical that is in our brain. This is the chemical that makes us feel good when we meditate, we do exercise, or we check off an item from your to-do list. However, the access to this dopamine chemical through smartphones has become so easy that we don't want to do anything else. And this is more prevalent when people are stressed with their daily lives. They resort to something that provides them with this momentary pause, a kick of dopamine, leading to a habit and thereby an addiction. And this chemical can come to your brain through several pathways, because it's a reward motivation chemical that dictates our habits and our behaviors. So most of the rewards, regardless of small or large, increase the level of dopamine in our brain. Many of the addictive drugs do this exactly the same way. Whenever you feel you have got a reward for your action, you'll get a dose of that dopamine in your brain. Unfortunately, the daily addiction from smartphones, from social media, that little kick of dopamine when someone comments on your picture or likes something witty you said on WhatsApp. So that gets hardwired into our brains, requiring us to use more and more of it. And hence we get more and more addicted to it, thereby falling into this dopamine trap and addiction. So rather than dealing with the stress by facing it, tackling it, we are teaching ourselves to push it away and use this easy dopamine releasing symptom through our smartphones. These messages, likes, hearts, comments, thumbs up, are all short-term signals which your brain takes as a reward for that message you sent or the post you made. More the rewards, the more we are psychologically manipulated to keep messaging, viewing, posting. Many of us don't realize that, that we are posting. We feel like we are posting because we want to, but it's actually already hardwired in our brain. And that craving to get that response gets us trapped in this vicious cycle. And this is how people are getting more and more addicted to social media in a very similar fashion as to people getting addicted to drugs or alcohol or gambling. So even a former vice president of user growth in Facebook, confessed at a Stanford University speech. You can see the quotation in the presentation, but I will just read it out. What he said was, "I feel tremendous guilt. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how societies work today. And now it has actually grown to be a major global mental wellness problem." So in general, there is nothing wrong with smartphones, technology, and social media. Like I said, we would not be here today without it, especially during this time of COVID-19. It has been a boon to many people. It has provided several individuals and businesses a very positive boost. Like I mentioned, like everything else, it is the imbalance that we need to be careful of. So if you're sitting there with your family or with your friends and you're texting someone who's not there, now that is a problem. That is the imbalance. What we are doing is we are sacrificing a deep, meaningful relationship with the ones present in front of you for something that's superficial, temporary, and for people that are not even there. So that is what we need to be careful with. So moving on, linked to this smartphones and social media, you can see this interesting comic regarding instant gratification. So we live in a world of instant gratification, which is easily facilitated by social media and mobile technology. What it basically means now is we need everything here and right now, where we don't have patience for anything else. The way we interact, the way we shop, the way we entertain ourselves is all filled with the notion of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you click on Amazon, you get a 1-day delivery, 2-day delivery, it's right there in your doorstep. You want to watch a show, you click on Netflix. You don't even need to drive to the movie hall or buy a ticket. You want to seek companionship, you swipe right. So everything is at your doorstep. This has made life easy for many people, but we need to understand the impact of it as well. So what it is doing today, especially for the kids that are growing up, it has been affecting in an exponential level. This impact of this is a generation of people growing up without values of patience instilled in them. We no longer have the patience for pursuing something meaningful. We don't understand the importance of hard work. Why? Because we can get a hit of dopamine by posting a picture, by saying something funny in your group, or just posting a status or a tweet, anything. So that is what is getting us unwell, and that is a serious problem. And the worst part about it is many people don't understand that this is actually a clinical problem that is making them lesser and lesser successful and more acquainted towards their devices and social media. So I've talked to you about the dark side and all the science and the research behind it, but let me get to something that you can do with yourself or your family that will help you get out of this vicious cycle. So what can we do about it? So I will start with a small example that I have done. So when I go back home after work, I choose where I can charge my phone, my smartphone. So instead of charging it on my bedside table, I choose to charge it in the gym or the kitchen. And for emergencies, I keep this beautiful device that many of us might have already forgotten about. It has no Facebook, no WhatsApp, but it's good for emergency calls. And the best part is you don't need to charge it for weeks. So what this routine basically does for me is simple. I don't waste time before sleeping or upon waking up. I don't get a plethora of notifications bombarding my mind in the morning. This gives me complete control of how I wake up, how I start my day, and how I end my day. And instead, I use that time to read, to write something, or to actually do something meaningful. And you can actually start this today and see how you feel about it. So one example that I can give you that maybe you can start is, for example, you would want to start a routine such as a morning run or doing yoga in the morning, what you can do is instead of charging your device next to your bed, you charge it in a separate room, possibly next to your running shoes or a yoga mat, for example. So what will happen is when you wake up, trust me, you will want to go to your phone because we are already addicted to those notifications and those information. But when you're going towards your phone, what will happen is you will see your running shoes, you'll see your yoga mat, you'll be awake. So you'll feel like might as well, go and do it rather than stay in bed. So this is you're using a negative feedback to create a positive habit loop. This is what Charles Duhigg talks about in his book, The Power of Habit. So you can do several things like that to actually change this habit and come out of this cycle. So nowadays, a lot of tech CEOs, the people that are actually creating these social media apps and devices, they have started taking digital detox days, even digital sabbaticals. Bill Gates has famously been said to take a week off every year, where he just goes to a very remote cabin with no connections, no mobile phones, just a handful of books and his thoughts. And he actually has said it in a speech of his that this is where most of his insights comes from in the whole year. So even at my resort that I briefly talked about in the starting of this presentation. So it's a bit scientific, but what I'm researching about is EMF protective linings. So basically, I am creating villas that are protected by any kind of magnetic fields or any kind of connections. And you can actually be inside there without any connections so that you're there with your work and your thoughts. And this is actually getting very big in the creative as well as the scientific world. Because what it does is without these distractions that are surplus in today's world, we get into this flow state of mind, this deep work, which is coined by an author called Cal Newport. And this is where many people make major breakthroughs in their thought process. So if you're interested in this topic, there's another book that I would love to recommend. Cal Newport is a distinguished professor from Georgetown University. I just finished it a couple of weeks ago, and he talks about how you can reduce those distractions and actually work deeply. So if you are looking to have a breakthrough in a certain thing, in a creative process or anything, any field of work, I would suggest you to look into this and just try that. So to wrap things up, the essence of what I'm trying to say here today is that once a while, just try to unplug yourself from this cycle. You could just take your family for a weekend trip to some place with less connectivity or just not have your phones. You can instead learn something together. You can explore nature and rebond in ways that we as human beings are really forgetting. And if this is too big a step, most of our phones, from Apples to Androids, any phone has digital wellness features nowadays where you can take complete control of what notifications you get, how much time you use your phone. You can put in timers so that they shut down themselves. So that can be a small step towards this. So these small steps for you and your family, especially your kids, can help a lot in the coming future. Technology is bound to get more and more addictive. So we need to be prepared right now so that we are digitally well. And once again, it's all about balance and your well being. Like we keep our bodies and minds well through exercise and meditation, we need to focus on our digital wellness as well. And we need to practice these habits and we need to control the digital use rather than letting it control you. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope my talk was insightful. Not an expert in this field, but I've done extensive research and I would be happy to take any question answers if there are. Thank you very much.
Aaron, thank you very much for your wonderful talk, very insightful, providing innovative ways to combat digital this thing and
Thank
to
you.
detox us.
I thought it
I
would be
can,
an interesting, topic because we have talked about various wellness fields. We've talked about meditation. We've talked about yoga, diet, everything. But this is a topic that many people are already getting into the cycle, but they don't know what is happening, especially for the kids nowadays. Even the older generation, they have been started using Facebook. India is actually the biggest user of Facebook in the world. Now we have Geo partnering with Facebook, so it's going to be a massive implosion of social media in India. So I hope this brings in a little insight so that people can be aware of it.
thank you, Karan. Indeed, a very helpful talk. Today I see Mr. Suresh Chukapalli ji, Honorary Consul General of South Korea here. May I request you, Suresh ji, to present your views? You may unmute yourself. After that, we can go in for the Q&A.
Thank you, Praveen. And I should congratulate Karan for his wonderful presentation. And also, God bless you. You are the youngest honorary consuls in our consular corps. So, and maybe Praveen and me are some of the oldest in the list. So you are as good as our son. And taking a cue from what you have presented, it's a wonderful topic and very well articulated. And all of us are going through the same phase of this digital manipulation of our minds and bodies. What I would like to understand, Karan, is number one. I understand that you have been doing some wonderful work in Nepal in creating a wellness center for people all around the world coming there, and helping them in maybe various other things, including the digital detox. So that's one. And how do we enjoy or use your facilities, and is there a way that we could buy a villa or something there? That's one. The second thing is, I have also some interest in wellness, because Praveen had asked me whether I can share that. Yes, what we are planning to do is, create a wellness center in Hyderabad. But due to COVID, we are now pushing it further for a year or so. We have tied up with a very good Thai company called Chivasong. But the Hyderabad wellness is a different kind of wellness. But what I would like to understand from you, like-minded people like me, Praveen, Vikram, who's honorary consul for Peru and others, we also have a very detached life from the business perspective, because all of us have been successful entrepreneurs. We have done 35, 40 years of business, and now we would like to, take some time off, be to ourselves, have some meditation and things like that. Of course, every time getting into Nepal may be difficult for us. So would it be possible for you to, help us in creating a similar thing in maybe Rishikesh or some part of Indian Himalayas? So Praveen has access to people in Rishikesh where we can get, and we should be able to help India also have a good center like what you have in Nepal. So these are two important things, because in India we lack some peaceful places, particularly with good historical mountainous regions and things like that. We have locations, but we don't have the facilities. We don't need expensive facilities. It should be reasonably good, neat facilities, but at the same time with all the required inputs. So I would, be happy if you could share your thoughts on that. Over to you, Karan.
Thank you so much for the questions. But first and foremost, I think I will briefly talk about my project, Kaivalya, and my thesis that is basically the software, the soul of the heart of these resorts and retreats. So during my research, what I noticed was there's a massive trend that's moving towards wellness in the hospitality sector. Every name brand is trying to get there because they understand that it has actually become a problem, and stress is a killer in today's world. So the gist of my thesis was that I combined wellness, employee as well as customer wellness, with rural development. So basically, you can choose where you build these resorts, like you mentioned, and basically you are creating rural development along with this wellness, and actually creating retreats that heal the mind, the body, and the soul for all the people that are present there. So I'm right now, I've finished with the designing, and I'll start with the construction. I was just mentioning this to a couple of Rtambhara members. And regarding it coming to India, I mean, I would love to help you out with Rishikesh. I actually studied in Dehradun for 10 years, and I know Rishikesh very well. And so definitely that is my vision. My thing that I want is to have these retreats wherever I can in the world with partners like you who actually understand this part of wellness. And I believe this is where Rtambhara also comes in, because they create these programs. They choose the retreats, but they create these programs, various programs that they have had in the past as well. And actually they go to different retreats and do these corporate as well as wellness programs. So, I mean, I'd love to talk to you one-on-one about this. And once my thing is done, I would love to invite you to Nepal so that you can see. Shivasom, you mentioned, that's a wonderful retreat, and it is one of the pioneering retreats of this mindset. Sadly, they haven't been able to branch out too much, but I read a very interesting article about the founder who is very specific about what Shivasom means, and I completely understand his vision as well. So it is definitely possible to bring it to India, and it is required more than ever. So I think we can definitely talk more about it. We can exchange contacts and discuss this in much more detail, and I'll be happy to help you.
Yeah, Karan, we have already signed agreement with Chivasom, and we have already created the base design, and it's a 70-key resort what we are planning.
Where is this exactly?
So in Hyderabad. It's in Hyderabad. I live in Hyderabad, so we are doing it in Hyderabad. But the Chivasom is a different, wellness center than what I would love to have it in Rishikesh. Chivasom is an urban and a little European and rich culture, but definitely in Rishikesh we should have something with mind, body, and soul getting connected to each other. And I would love to understand more about you on a one-to-one basis. I'll take your contact from Praveen and get connected. Also, are we allowed to buy any property in Nepal?
I don't think you can buy property as a foreigner, but you can invest in hospitality projects. There's a way around.
So that means we can invest
directly,
in you.
You cannot buy land. Yes, definitely. That you can do. That you can definitely do.
Yeah, over to you, Praveen.
Very interesting questions. Thank you, Karan, for your effective responses. Veena ji, can I request you now to please moderate the question and answer session, please?
Sure.